Awesome. Well, hi to everybody who is tuning in this morning and who is going to be having a chance to listen to this call down the road. This is Andrew Yoder with Lionhearted Coaching. And on the other end of the line, we've got Amy Finkbeiner.
Hi, this is Amy Finkbeiner. I am with Amy Finkbeiner Life Coaching. I'm an intentional living and a relationship coach. I help people get it together and stop feeling like a fraud and help them make choices that align with their values so that they can discover and live their divine design. So, joy to be here this morning, Andy, doing this with you.
Yeah, me and Amy have just a little bit about who we are. We have been a part of PCCI, Professional Christian Coaching Institute, and we were in peer groups together, so part of our training was us interacting within the peer groups, and as a result of that, we decided to just keep right on coaching after the peer groups were over, and we have been involved in this process for how long now, Amy? Would you guess?
Probably going on a year and a half we've been together, working together.
Yeah. And we found it to be a very rich, blessed thing to be involved in coaching continually. And I think we both agree with that really strongly. So, so we're excited now to take some of what we've uncovered through class and take some of our coaching experience with others and, just pull out some gold nuggets, some gems for you guys to engage with and think about. And then afterwards, give you a chance to ask some questions, that type of thing. So our topic today is going to be identifying values and then also sticking to your values. Amy, do you have anything you want to throw in there about our topic before I dive in with the identifying values piece?
No. I think it's pretty clear what we're talking about. I would just say to people, if you can, grab a pen and paper and feel free to take some notes, because if you do want to hang around, after the recording stops, we can talk about that. But just allow this to be, 30 minutes just for you today before the craziness of the weekend starts, as we start to enter this holiday season. And let this be a time of growth, just even some personal growth. So it's for you.
Yeah, and I echo that. And I think a lot of times with the busyness that life brings, taking time out of the week to set aside for personal growth can be tricky sometimes, and we often get caught up in a lot of other things, and sometimes personal growth is a little difficult to engage with. It can be a little bit intimidating sometimes, but I have found, for me personally, and I know Amy as well, that having the coaching process to engage with every week really helps to carve out like that space and that time for personal growth, and also to have somebody else there, coaching you along through the difficult times as well too. So we obviously love coaching and how it has impacted our lives. So jumping into the identifying values piece, I'm going to be covering that a bit, and then Amy's going to be chiming in a bit more on sticking to your values. There's a lot of different ways that we can identify our values. One of them, like if you want just a couple practical exercises that you can do at home there with a pen and paper, is I'm just going to throw a couple of them out there and give you a chance to engage with them if you want. And one of them is to just think of your favorite place and ask yourself, what is it about your favorite place that you like so much? Maybe it's a favorite place you like to go on a weekend. Maybe it's, a favorite location nearby. But as you think about that place, start to ask on a deeper level, why do I like that place so much? And I know for me personally, I've done this exercise, and as I've looked at some of my favorite places, I start to realize that those favorite places are a combination of a lot of different values that I have coming together that makes like a really sweet spot for me. And that's one way that you can think about identifying your values, and encourage you to do so. Another way that you could look at how to identify values is actually in conflict, where you find conflict with others. Carl Jung actually says, and we're going to quote by him here, that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And one of the things that we like to do in coaching that I believe is very powerful is called reframing, or changing a mindset on things. And oftentimes when we run into conflict, I don't typically hear people jumping up and down and excited about having a conflict either within themselves or with other people. But conflict is an excellent way to understand better your values, and understand better the values of others. And that just having that awareness and realizing that conflict can actually produce some really cool stuff is pretty powerful. So there's two types of conflicts that we could have. One is within ourselves, where you may find yourself getting frustrated. I know in my life there's moments of frustration where I have different values within myself competing in my life to find expression at one time. And so if you're feeling a conflict within yourself, and Amy's going to touch more on this in sticking to your values, if you feel a conflict within yourself, it's a great time to stop and say, wow, I feel this tension, something feels out of alignment, what's going on inside of me? And once you can put your finger on each of those different values that are competing within yourself, you're going to find just much better understanding of yourself and what's going on. So that's an example of an internal conflict that can help you identify values, but then also just within relationships with others, whenever you run into a conflict, I have a brother who works in conflict resolution, and one of the things that they'll do anytime someone gets in a conflict with another is they'll have them stop and identify the values that the other person has and identify the values that you have, and then see how those are in tension. So this works both personally at conflicts within yourself, and it also works relationally as you see conflicts with other people. And there's one other one here that I wanted to throw out there for you. Just as you think about where you might want to live in the world, that's another great way to look at what you value. I know that for me personally, there was a time in a season in my life where living out in Colorado really, really called to me. There was something about those Rocky Mountains that made me think I needed to be there. And I was doing this exercise that I'm suggesting for you guys right now, like looking on that deeper level. And as I looked on a deeper level, what it was about Colorado that was calling to me was this desire to explore. The Rocky Mountains represented to me unlimited exploration. And I found that exploration is something that I really value. And I found other ways then, like once you identify the value too, you can find other ways for it to find expression in your own life. And so those are a couple ways that you can start to identify values in your life. Amy, you want to chime in with anything else that you would want to add or contribute on this piece of identifying values?
Yeah, it was just kind of making me reflect back to when I did the work to identify values and really how long it took me to nail it down. This really isn't just a 5-minute exercise of saying, okay, yeah, I love Colorado. Is it about that? And then you go, okay, well, great, but, I live in Oklahoma City, and this is where my job is with my kids, and, I can't move to Colorado. So there's more to it than that, and that, I guess that's the beauty of being able to work with the coach, is because you have that dedicated space to, to apply this. So it was this really long process, and not only was it like some of these mental exercises that you're talking about. Another one that I thought of during that time was the sentence, when I'm at my best, and just fill in that line. And so you start to, right then and there, a mind shift begins, because you start to imagine yourself constantly operating out of a state of being at your best. And I felt an immediate relief physically in my body when I started to imagine that I was operating out of my best all the time. It was very empowering. It was very empowering. Another exercise that I did was thinking of words. Just, I kind of started off with a list of values, and I started just kind of looking them over. I'll even kind of use the word meditate, because I really spent some quiet time with them. What resonated with me? What words felt good? New words came to light. And I wasn't assigning meaning yet to these words. I wasn't eliminating any of them. I wasn't making decisions. I was just going with my heart at that time. I will tell you.
And Amy, how many did you say you had? Because I think I remember you throwing out a number.
I did. I had nearly 100 words when I was done with that. And then I started putting them into categories. Of course, a lot of the words were the same or similar, so I could eliminate. And then I put in strings of words together, words that I still wanted to keep, but they belonged in a specific family. And then I started ranking them, from there, and came up with some of my top 10. And so you can see how this could be quite a long process, and it's a multi-layered process. So maybe for you, Andy, your example with Colorado and wanting to be this, great exploration, when you start coming through with these words, you find other words that support great exploration. And right? So then you realize if you had 20 words that support this theme of great exploration, ding, 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 you've hit gold there.
Thanks for throwing that in there. I'm talking about these exercises, like this is something you could do in 5 minutes over coffee, but really what I'm throwing out here is stuff that has come from like 3 years of being involved in the coaching process. And I'm still discovering, as I live life now, what more of my values are and what those deep places in my heart are really saying, and that's the beauty of this process, is that it's a continual growth in aligning yourself with those things that are really deep, inside of you, that we often, don't take the time or carve out the space to discover about ourselves. And I think you're right on the money, Amy, when you say that it's definitely a process. It's not something that can happen super quick. And there's so many other things out there in life competing for your time, competing for your mental space, competing for your heart, that if you don't carve out the space and the time to really listen to what's going on inside of you, you can end up leaving so much unexplored about who you are, how you're wired, what you were created to do, what your purpose is in life. And that's something that I've found super, super valuable and wouldn't trade.
When you say the word how you're wired, I just have to add here too, what has become so important to me is doing personality inventories, because those then so support the values. So it could be anything from Myers-Briggs / 16 personalities, love languages, Enneagram, Strength finder for sure. You know, I realized for myself, my number 2 strength is relator. And as an ESTJ, you would think that that's kind of contradictory.
Right.
ESTJ, there's no feeling involved there. You know, you can make these decisions. It's more that executive CEO brain. So what is? But so now when we talk about values and how I'm getting into sticking into them, or you're talking about conflict, when all of a sudden there's conflict, and I'm like, why is that? If I can go back and I can remember, oh well, Amy, it's because you're a relator. But also the ESTJ piece is requiring you to make a decision this way and to think about it this way, but that is in conflict with relating with people. So it puts me on this deep dive of how I can combine these two and honor all of what God created me to be. Yeah.
Yep. That is really rich, and I love the words you used. You're using some coaching words there. For those of you who are not familiar with the words deep dive, and deep dives are something that happen in coaching where, you know, a lot of times we end up on the surface, and there's actually a verse, I believe it's in Proverbs, it says the heart of a man is like deep waters, but someone of understanding draws it out. And I tell you what, when you go on deep dives in coaching and you go into those deep places of your heart, some really, really, really cool stuff happens. I've seen, you know, countless times in coaching where people have these aha moments and where they feel like, oh my goodness, like I didn't understand that about myself. Wow, I see that now. And, you know, it's just so beautiful. And I think what Amy's throwing in the mix here is there's a ton of other ways to begin to build some awareness around what your values are. And some of the tools she mentioned are great, you know, 5 love languages, personality type, strength finders, like all those kind of things. And I really feel like we mentioned, you know, what our niche is in coaching, and Amy mentioned some things there. And I really feel for me like what I do well as a coach is helping people get that big picture awareness of who they are, and utilizing lots of different tools to do that. So, yeah, thanks for plugging that in, Amy. Anything else that you're thinking for this section before we kind of shift a little bit to look at sticking to your values?
No, I think that that is a great overview to some exercises that they can do, or even just to get people thinking about what this whole values discovery is.
Right.
And why it's important, how it impacts literally every single day of your life. You know, I was shocked to find out that we make about 35,000 decisions a day. Many internet resources point to this number, and you know, most of these these are even just remotely conscious. So this is the range from remotely conscious to completely conscious decisions. Interestingly enough, many of those are about food. I think what I read was nearly 200 of them was just about food alone. And you know, then there's different categories of these decisions. You know, some are just impulsive. You're purely just going on your feelings, what's going on with what's in your heart at that time. And some of them are just going along with people. You know, you really don't want to deal with it. What makes everybody happy? Don't have a lot of time here. Some of these you let other people make, you know, like in relationships. Okay, what are we going to do tonight? I don't care. You decide. I don't care. You decide. Okay, so it could be that way. Some of them we just ignore. Some of these decisions we just ignore. But that is a decision. To not make a decision is a decision. And some of them we do put some time and effort into it, where we weigh the factors and then we try to come up with the best decision. And sometimes I think that when we have to make these really difficult decisions that really require a values-based decision, we get stuck in this balancing where we're just looking at the factors involved, and then it's a very black and white kind of decision. So it might be a little bit more surface. There's more facts to back it up, but it's definitely more surface. When you get into this values-based decision, you know, you're going to be prioritizing things, you're going to be reflecting, and you're definitely using using values. That's when they come in. So, awareness, that is, and just being present, that is absolutely positively the first key to holding on to your values. You're paying attention, quite frankly, to the physical reaction in your body, how you feel about that. And, feelings are not the greatest way to make decisions because we know that.
Oh, come on, Amy.
Call, right? If we made decisions on our feelings all the time, just talk about driving. How many people would you run off the road? But especially, when we get into relationships with people, and this, a lot of work, what I do is relationship coaching, and that's not what people come to me for. They don't intentionally say, I need help with my relationships. But that is what is being drawn out. That is what is happening. And whether it be with their kids, with coworkers, with their husband, it's just all of these areas in their life with relationships where, there's a compromise. There's an underlying vibe of it, things just being out of alignment. And so, yes, so these feelings, again, this is a good place to talk about what coaching is and what it is not. Let me just say that coaching is not counseling. So we don't spend tons of time going back, into the past and dealing with hurts and wounds and fixing that or working towards fixing that. But having our feelings, being aware of our feelings is an important part of moving forward because you get that why, you get that motivation, behind what's happening in your heart. So
yeah,
right,
yeah.
And sometimes there's a lot of conflict going on, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Kind of like what you were talking about, out of conflict comes an awareness. And let me give you an example, though. Recently I was asked to go back to a job that I had left about 2 years ago. And I left that job just knowing, there was a lot of tension and political unrest going on at the time. And it was just a real toxic situation as to what was going on. So it was an absolute positive thing that I left, and I'm glad that I left. But yet they needed my help again, so to go back. And since that time, I have been working these insane amounts of hours, and there's a lot of conflict there. There is, you think about what you're doing, and on a day-to-day basis, you're saying, okay, I have conflict. But then you start to really think about your values and why you're doing what you're doing. So this is where the reframing piece comes in that Andy was talking about, because you have a choice as to your mindset, quite frankly. This is where you get your power back. Instead of something happening to you, this is where you get your power back and you have a decision about it. You get to choose how you're going to feel about something that's going on in your life. And so every time there starts to be like this unalignment that's coming up, this tension, this resentment maybe, because it's like, okay, now I have to go to this job and do this work, after hours. I remember what's important to me. Again, I mentioned to you that I'm a relator. Community is important to me. Excellence, integrity, personal accountability. Those things are high on my values list. So if I'm going to come in and fix a problem or clean up a mess, that fits into that integrity with it being in my community.
Yeah. Can I jump in for a second real quick?
Yeah.
Cool. Because I think I hear some really cool themes here, and one of them is I hear you saying that your values are what anchor you and ground you and keep you solid in the middle of some conflict, in the middle of some stuff that's pretty turbulent.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm constantly because I'm aware, I'm constantly reminding myself of what these values are. Because if I was just left to my own devices, my own nature, my own feelings, I'd be ticked off every minute of the day. Right? So that's that conflict being there, being really clear on these values is going to help you stay the course. And that's what this piece is, right? Sticking to your values. That's how you stick to your values, is being aware and doing these mental exercises of choosing your mindset and then saying, how can I look at this differently? How does this support my value?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the greater good in this? You know, then you could drill it down to something that we get into relationships. You know, maybe there's a family event and you know, somebody invites you to something and you're like, I got to go to one more thing. Do a check-in with your values, right? Do a check-in with your values. Is it, you know, are you giving up something to go to this that's of value to you? So if you're giving up family time with maybe your kids or your husband or something so that you can go and support somebody else, weigh those out. Weigh those out, because you don't, you know, a lot of guilt comes into decision making. Well, I don't want to go and do this, but I'd feel so guilty about it. Okay? There's no place in a healthy, abundant, balanced life for guilt. There's no place. So when you make decisions consciously and intentionally with an anchor in your core values, you're rooting out that guilt. You're rooting out that guilt. And then you can own it, and that's it, owning it. So, you know, how we choose to believe or even have an opinion about something. We have so many opinions about things, but that's a choice. You know, and finally, I'll just talk about, like, timing of decisions. This is a good way. Having the wisdom to be able to classify the certain decisions that you have to make, and then applying the right approach is really also going to help you stick to your decisions. You know, some decisions, they don't even need to be decisions for you. People around you are making them. You know, maybe they're deciding where to go to lunch, and you had mentioned yesterday that you really want to go to Taco Bell, and now they're deciding someplace else. You know, you can just let that go. And, you know, I just bring up these really unimportant type decisions because I just see so many people living their life out of this constant state of being offended. And I think it's because they're spending so much time on these really unimportant things. Right? And they're just feeling, you know, not heard, not loved, not taken care of. Okay, go back to your values, find out what's real, start tracing back all of these interactions with other people that you're choosing to have an opinion or a belief about, and seeing where it fits into those values. And then making a decision. All right, I can let that go. That really doesn't matter. You know, then you have some decisions that can pretty easily be decided. It kind of even flows into that impulsive, or it's fine, you know, a compliant type response. You don't need to put a whole lot of thought into it, and it's okay to be compliant. You know, maybe you're with your friends and the whole group wants to go to B-dubs, and it might not be your favorite, but what else? You know, I can grab a salad or whatever. They're routine. They don't require a whole lot of research, so not a whole lot of effort. And then you keep going to the decisions that are more difficult, that require more. So when you get to those decisions, give yourself the space and the time. You know, when something is coming your way and you have to make a decision, that is a great question to ask yourself. How much time do I have to make this decision? How much time do I really have to make this decision? What do I need in order to make the best decision for myself? Do I need more sleep? Do I need more coffee? Do I need right? Do I need to get maybe just in balance? I've been working really hard and I just need a night out with a girlfriend, or I need to go and have some recreation. I need to go and take a hike. I need to exercise. I need to go to a boxing class to get some of this junk out before I approach this decision. So I think that is using that wisdom will help you stay true to your values, is when you can classify your decision as to how much effort it's going to take, who's going to need to be involved, and what you need to do for yourself in order to make that best decision, all the while being anchored in those values.
Yeah. If I hear you right here, Amy, I'm hearing you say, one, we're running about 35,000 conscious or unconscious decisions a day, and we can get hung up on tiny little decisions, and we can waste all of our brain space and energy, dying on the battlefield for things like going to Taco Bell, or there's other smaller things, or we can become wiser in how where we put our time and energy into decisions, and make sure that we're letting the smaller, inconsequential ones go, and then putting our brain space into those bigger decisions, and not only putting it into the bigger decisions, but also recognizing that there's certain times of day, there's certain things we can do that are going to put us in the right mindset to make that decision, and then making sure that we have ample space for it. And it sounds like you're building all this too off of the anchor and the grounding of already knowing your values. And if you don't have a good knowledge of what your values are and what's really important to you, I just wonder, Amy, if you could jump in and what are other options? If we don't know what our values are, is that where the guilt comes in? Is that where, what else comes in there when we are in tune with that?
Right. When you're not in tune with your values, then you're living for externally, right? You're doing everything to please other people. So it's all coming from an external, at a girl, at a boy. And nobody else has your best interest, at heart for the most part. Even the kindest, most wonderful people are going to be driven by what suits them best. So if somebody is asking you, for instance, if your boss is asking you to take on more duties, and they're truly asking and not telling, they're asking you to take on more duties, they're coming from themselves because it will help them. It will help them. It will alleviate them and the conflict or the problem that they're having. Then this is where you need to go back to yourself, do that deep dive of the values. If I did these extra duties, how would this impact me? How does this flow into my values? And then you realize if the answer back is no, there's no guilt because you have done the exercise and you have identified why your answer is what it is, and then you can own it. I think that's where guilt comes from, is when you are not able to own something, when you're not able to own that decision. It's a victim stance. Guilt is a victim stance.
Yeah, I agree that if we do not know what our values are, we are going to be an anchorless ship, and we will be up for wherever the wind of other people's opinions, or what other people think about us, or just a whole barrage of things can take us in life. And I think that's why me and Amy are both digging into the content of this call that we are, is because we believe very strongly that each person has value, and each person has some really cool things in their heart, has some really cool things that are important to them. I love the verse, I believe it's in Psalms, that it talks about, delighting yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. And taking time to, pull those out and, talking to the Lord. Me and Amy are both Christian coaches. We value bringing Scripture and bringing the work of the Holy Spirit and bringing a knowledge of the Father, into the coaching. We believe that that's where true change can happen. And we're also respectful, if folks aren't wanting to include that in their coaching, and they're operating from a different value system, we're also respectful of that. And we coach within their belief system. But again, back to, what's going on inside of your heart. I believe there's cool things that is inside of everybody. And if you're not aware of what those are and tuned into those, you're going to get taken for a ride by all the craziness that's going on in the world. And so that's what we're here for. We're here to encourage you to create the time and the space to get in touch with what's there in your heart, and then to live it out and to stick to it even when other things challenge it. Any more thoughts on that, Amy? I think we're about about it.
Yeah.
Our time limit here, about time to wrap it up.
Yeah, no, I think that that was a great summation, and I would just like to encourage people to take the time to do this. Reach out to a coach if you feel like you can't do it on your own, or if you would just like some assistance to get you through that part. You know, that's the good thing about coaching, is that it helps keep you accountable, helps keep you on track. You know, we hold that space for you. We hold your agenda for you. You get to create that agenda, but we hold it for you. And so that's the beauty in it. So we come along to partner with you. We come alongside you. We're not experts by any means in this field or any other field, even though we have experience in a lot of it, personal experience. So we're not going to be telling you what to do. We're not going to be telling you what your values are or how you should be making decisions. But it's just about being there. It's about listening. It's about being able to hear and bring up the things that maybe you're not even saying. But there's a lot of instinct that goes along with this, and intuition that goes along with coaching. And so it's a great experience. And, you know, even if it's not Andy or I, that's fine. It's just coaching. Coaching is life-changing. And so, you know, I'm going to, I have a Facebook page. That's pretty much everything that I operate out of. So it's Amy Finkbeiner Life Coaching. And I'll spell Finkbeiner for you because it's not the easiest to spell. Finkbeiner. It's Amy with a Y. So Amy Finkbeiner Life Coaching. You know, Andy's Facebook page is Lionhearted Coaching. You can also find us on Instagram. And those are ways to reach out to us and to just do some exploration to see if we would be a match for you. One thing I always tell people, too, is if we realize that we're not a match for each other, I can absolutely help recommend other coaches. There's also other sites where you can find coaches, you know, and do your own investigating to where you find one that's right for you. So this time that we've had together is by no means a complete sales pitch just for us. It's really just, it's about the coaching and how powerful it can be in your life, right? How it can get you from where you are to where you want to be.
Yeah, and that's where I jump in right there with you, Amy, and say, look, we want to encourage you guys to get this stuff however it works for you. Maybe it's you and a friend sitting down and doing some of these exercises in a coffee shop and, you know, having some exploratory time there. Maybe it's you just saying personally, you want to carve out space in your busy, hectic life, and you want to engage some of this stuff on your own, you know, or maybe you want to become part of a coaching group or get involved in coaching. We're not here to say to do it the Amy and Andy way. We're here to say do it because it's going to be super rich for you, and you're never going to regret it. This is stuff that I encourage everybody to get involved with in whatever way works best for them. And me and Amy, we're both pretty altruistic. Like if we recognize that, you know, something isn't working within the coaching, like we're going to try to, you know, encourage you to get in touch with somebody where it will work, or find a new way of doing it for you. Because our heart in all of this is that you guys get from where you are to where you want to be. And we are experts in the coaching process. Just to clarify, Amy had mentioned earlier about, you know, we won't say that we're a values expert or, you know, this kind of thing, and we're going to lecture you in a coaching session. We are experts in helping you get to where you want to go through coaching. That's something we both do very well, and I believe you'll be really blessed if you get involved with either of us. So anything else? Wrap it up?
I'm just thinking, we should wrap it up, and we should let people, you know, we'll shut off the recording, and then we'll hang on the line for anybody who wants to just talk or have any questions about any of the content or even anything about coaching. So
all right,
thanks everybody for tuning in, and have a great day.
Yeah, blessings to y'all, and be watching in the future for more calls like this.